So fundamentally, it boils down to staying alive does not come free. You have to make an effort, a planned, sustained effort. If you have to sustain, you have to take sustained steps. You have to sustain, sustainably. You have to keep on practicing, keeping the people immune. If Charaka and Sushmita, they have prescribed about 15 things that people have to do every day as part of their daily routine to keep their immunity, in good condition. So all these things have to be practiced sustainably, otherwise you will not sustain. So which is why we call vaccination a prevented brand of India. Ultimately the West adopted it, and then it has come back to us in a different form in its modern avatar. And it's time that we start taking the lead once again to reclaim this brand. So the secret, like we've been saying, is to avoid, arrive at balance. Fundamentally, look at things from a balanced point of view and practice it at all times. Now, after all this, we may wonder, like we are saying so much about India having done, having had this and therefore stayed alive. Is there some concrete example that we can pick and then talk about? This is something that is very, very relevant, especially in the light of what Prime Minister Modi also urged Indian youth today about developing vaccines. Vaccines, actually, we've written about this in our book, Brand Bharat, how it has been a prevented brand of India.
It's a brand of India. Vaccination is a brand of India. Already spoke about Charaka. And we have had Mahamari, that's a killer death in India in different ways. You have the word Marak for death, Mari is for infection, fatal infection. In the Tamil language, you got the word Mari means rain. And you got Mummari is a very Sangam literature word for 3 types of rains you have. So you have the phrase called Mummari Malai Peydadu. So
and
it rained 3
rains
seasons.
and infections go very close together.
So that's why you got Mahamari, the epidemics. And if you look at it in Persian language, beyond Afghanistan, in Persia, the word for illness is Bimari. Again, Mari. Ill health, Bimari.
And I might add that Spanish and other Western languages, there is something called muerto, M-E-U-R-T-O. It also means death. So mrityu, muerto.
Mrityu. Yeah, comes from mrityu. Because because Sanskrit, Latin had a close connect.
Exactly. Latin is one of those few languages which has, just like Sanskrit, you have Ramaha, Ramau, Ramaha. Just 2 cases of Rama, right? Singular, dual, and plural. Latin has the same thing. Singular,
dual. So that's why you have it there. So we have had plagues and epidemics in India regularly. We heard Mahamari.
We have had divinities also for these kind of epidemics. And this divinity has been called Mariamman in Tamil, Marubai in North, in Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Sheetala Devi also is her name, meaning one who is propitiated, the cooling one. And Sheetal.
Yeah, Sheetal is cooling one. Right.
Yeah, and so interesting to see that her Vahan, her vehicle, is a donkey, an ass. You would think, who would give a god an ass as a vehicle? We have again written about this in that Brand Bharat
book, was one full chapter on this.
Ass, the donkey's milk, has been used even by Cleopatra as a cosmetic.
She bathed in donkey's milk in the bathtub.
I see.
Cleopatra.
It's supposed to be very soothing for irritants, a skin that is irritated. It's supposed to bring in a soothing effect, almost like the calamine that we use of today. And also there is a very nice saying in South, in Tamil, you say, Azhudha moonji sirichidan, kazhuda paala kudichidan.
Right.
It's something that, you chide a child, suppose the child has been crying irritatedly a lot, and suddenly it starts laughing. Then you tell that, look at this kid, it was crying all this while, and now it is laughing as though it has drunk donkey's milk.
Right.
So
right.
a donkey's milk, and today also a lot of communities, they give a child a little bit of donkey's milk as soon as it's born for its immunity. And it's supposed to be also very close to human milk as such in its form, I mean thickness and so on, the fat and everything. So look at how well they have associated, and the things they have given this divinity are broom and dustpan. More because she is invoked when there are afflictions of chickenpox and smallpox, which were the main plague, which were the main epidemics then. We will see how India did not have much of plague until about 1000 CE, and why we will see. But she was, just so that she can all those sheddings after affliction of chickenpox or smallpox, just to gather them. And then they would make offerings of udad dal, the lentil udad dal, which are like small pustule, kind of white colored small things. Nobody will eat it after this. But so the way they have connected divinities and things that happen in nature, and there are particular times when people worship this divinity. In North, they worship her during just before the rains around May. Is when they worship her, they offer her rose water, coconut water, and all of that.
All the coolants.
Whereas in the south, it is during the month of Adi, which is in around July, August is when they worship. Because come September, there will be rains in southern India, September, October. So everything, these are the kind of desachar and the knowledge. Now, when we talk about vaccines, we say that, we commonly think of Edward Jenner, who introduced the smallpox vaccine in 1796 in England. And the word vaccine itself comes from the Latin word for cow, which is vacca. But just look at this description by Dr. J.F. Colwell, which was in 1767 itself.
Much before, decades before Jenner.
And he observes the practice of vaccination in India, and he has written about it. And he writes about how there were a group of people who would go periodically every year to villages, so like the charaka that we saw before, and so there was a fixed time. So the village people knew when they would come. So before they would come, they would abstain from certain foods and await the arrival of these physicians, undergo the vaccination, and then be free from and be immune from those viruses for the rest of the year. So this was a very common practice. So when we say India practiced preventive care, this was a kind of preventive care, and which also needs a lot of discipline amongst the physician community to go and practice it throughout, and the people to make sure, await this physician, practice the food regimen and so on. And therefore he says that there was no large scale smallpox epidemic recorded until this practice was banned in 1804. Now what happened? After Jenner's discovery of smallpox vaccine, since we were under British rule then, the Indian practice was discontinued and people were made to go in for Jenner's vaccine. And the idea is not what medicine you give, it is the system that you follow, the regimen or the discipline. So it is not enough that I have the medicine, but I have to make sure it is administered frequently in that cycle.
The way I understand vaccine is that you actually induce what you are going to get in small amounts and let the body build the strength towards that, isn't it?
Yes.
That's why in the early slides we spoke about poison, how poison can be administered and good medicine.
Right.
We spoke about that. About both Sushruta and Charaka speak about it in there. That's about an hour back we spoke about it.
Right.
So he says that there were no records of such large-scale epidemics in India until 1804, and this Indian system of vaccination was banned in favor of that. So it is not just the medicine; it's also the practice, the system of having such physicians who were going around looking after and making sure that people were inoculated periodically. So that is more important. And see, even in 1731 again, which is even before 1767, you have another account by Coult in an account of the diseases of Bengal. And these people were called Dhanvantris, like from Dhanvantri, a
Obviously,
physician, Dhanvantri physician. They called him Dhanvantri.
because Dhanvantri is English way of saying it for Champanagar, but it's basically Dhanvantri. Look at that, Dhanvantri. Dhan is the wealth. So Dhanvantri is also, they clearly knew wealth,
Health is well.
health is wealth. That's why he was called Dhanvantri.
And Holwell was very much a part of the medical system of England. He was from the London Royal College of Physicians, and when he wrote about this.
And he wrote about the paper there.
And when this practice or Indian practice was disturbed, that is when the epidemics as such started appearing in India of smallpox. Now, if you go back, actually, you find records
Years
of,
before that.
even in 500 CEs, we've been having these kind of vaccination
And we had
methods.
names for it. Smallpox was called Vasuri and cowpox was called Go Vasuri. And it's from the Go Vasuri, you took out the vaccine and then you injected it into a normal person so that he does not get Vasuri, the smallpox infection. So it was a practice. It was a 7-day process. While India for thousands of years had practiced this Go Vasuri system to avoid smallpox as a disease and had a divinity also for it. Look at this. Yale University in your country, USA, the second president of Yale University, he very clearly says that when the smallpox vaccination was introduced in America after Edward Jenner's time, he says, if a person should die of smallpox, it would be frightful sin to avoid and annul the decree by the trick of vaccination. So he called vaccination trick to annul the decree of death. So he put an embargo on it. So this was the educated class, the so-called scientific, the heads of universities who did not want it in West as recently as 200 years back. Whereas in India, you had this practice of vaccination going back thousands of years. And actually we should proudly say vaccination is a brand of India, which is what you said in our book, Brand Bharat. And let's look at this interesting English poem, which I'm sure all of us would have said in our school days.
So from the 1300s to 1700s, actually Europe was plagued by plague, literally. And of late, we find, we are able to give a meaning to the poem. Ringa, normally we say ringa ringa roses, but it is not just ringa ringa, but ring around the rosy, a pocket full of posies, because a ring around the rosy, in the skin, they used to have rings forming before the blisters of plague. And because there were so many people dying of plague, they used to carry these posies, flowers, to prevent the bad smell. And then a tissue, we all fall down. And normally the poem stops there, but there is also a second para, which is the cows are in the meadow eating buttercups, thunder, lightning, we all stand up. So what is interesting is they all fell down and then they all stood up, which means that they had found some cure. And the interesting cure was the cows are in the meadow eating buttercups, because buttercups are poisonous both for animals and humans. So cows normally wouldn't eat buttercups, but that means cows eating buttercups is being mentioned. So prompted us to just check, what are these, is there any connection between buttercups? And there are certain varieties of buttercups in Indian system. They're called as Kandira in Sanskrit, Kandiram in Tamil, Malayalam. And in Hindi, it is also called Shim and all, Jaldaniya and all. Now, these have been recommended against skin diseases such as eczema, herpes and all that. So perhaps they had found some kind of relief in using a variety of buttercup. But then this was still not a vaccine in India.
These photos of vaccines in India, vaccines being administered in India in 1896. And look at this person.
This was more of a treatment. The actual vaccine was developed by Hafkin for plague in 1897 when he was in India.
It's the Hafkin. W.M. Hafkin in 1897. He introduces the plague vaccine in India. So actually, if you look at this going back, these two leading lights of India then in the last century, they contributed a lot of their effort towards the avoidance of plague and the cleansing of plague. For example, Balagangadhar Tilak, he got the title Lokamanya How did he get? Because it was his work, early work at the time of the plague, Mahamari that hit Western India, Pune and Mumbai. The initial work, that's why he was accepted by everybody for the good work. That's why Loka Manya. Manya, respect, Loka, across strata of society was accepted. So that's why he got the title Lokamanya. That's why he became Lokamanya Balagangar Tilak for the good work he did early in his early life when the Mahamari hit. Similarly, it's only after he came up with the slogan Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. And his book Overai, everything else came after that. So that was the early phase of his life. So he did his good work during plague. Similarly, Swami Vivekananda, when he was a young Swami in Calcutta, he came up with a plague manifesto itself as to what all we should do to keep away this plague. So like different people have, one in the west of India, one in the east of India, many people have contributed to this effort. And if you look at this, in Madras province alone, due to the then cholera and plague, we had about 117,000 people dying in 1 year of 1903. And for the plague, over 1 crore of people died in India in a 20-year period in British India. So that was a huge deaths we had. Interestingly, we never had any plagues in India. We don't have any record of plague epidemic as such till the visit, till the invasion of Muhammad of Ghori, Ghazni period. We did not have, because India was a then relatively healthy civilization. It did not have large scale plague. It was that invasion that brought in plague. And then we had the plague that's coming in from China, Hong Kong in 1850s.
Again, that was also from China. In the plague, bubonic plague of India was from China because of opium trade of the British with China and via Hong Kong and everything. And in fact, even the European plague is attributed to China because through the Silk Route, it spread through Central Asia into Europe. But the point here we have to know is that why didn't India talk about these kind of huge epidemics? Is that when you have plunders, when you have marauders coming in, and these kind of invasions happening, it brings in discontinuity into your health practices. The regimen of these physicians traveling and giving periodic vaccines and so on. So that is when these kind of epidemics lift their heads and then attack people. So fundamentally, it boils down to staying alive does not come free. You have to make an effort, a planned, sustained effort. If you have to sustain, you have to take sustained steps. You have to sustain, sustainably, you have to keep on practicing, keeping the people immune. If Charaka and Sushmita, they have prescribed about 15 things that people have to do every day as part of their daily routine to keep their immunity, in good condition. So all these things have to be practiced sustainably, otherwise you will not sustain. So which is why we call vaccination a prevented brand of India. Ultimately the West adopted it, and then it has come back to us in a different form in its modern avatar. And it's time that we start taking the lead once again to reclaim this brand, because we say, from Puranics to Vigyanics to genetics, we have been in the
we have the knowledge, the science, Vigyan.
We have been playing in this field. So we have this repository of traditional medicine, which has been focused more on preventives. And if vaccine was one such thing, which was there and which is lying in our traditional wisdom, there are a lot more such secrets there which are waiting to be discovered. Today, we are a preferred partner nation in the field of biotechnology, genome research. We have open-minded genetic engineering policy. We have a very good pharma and medical industry developed in fairly good state of development. We are also a hub for clinical trials today. But more than anything, we are a very friendly nation. So whatever we discover, we have actually been a giving nation. If at the end of writing all our Brand Bharat books, we say that India has been a brand for so many things. So what does that mean? The actual brand of India has been, it is a giving nation. So we have been always a giver. And, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu has been the driving principle with which we have been living all these years. So again, going back to the knowledge of how we have stayed and kept ourselves sustained, which is there in a lot of our traditional knowledge and traditional practices, clubbing it with what we can do using modern science today, it is time we come back and give the world the secret of staying alive as well as keeping ourselves safe.
That was excellent. Are we done, or do we have some
more? It all
more?
boils down to having a confidence in India, in its ethos, and also its ways, and daring to practice them.
Yes.
Bring them together.
So all this way, we got this book called Staying Alive. Okay, and a lot of this content is being put up in our blog, our social media, Twitter, Facebook. So that's for people, all your audience to go through and take it forward from there.
Sure. All right. I have a few questions. First off, hats off to you. You two are very prolific. How long did it take for you to conceive this book and write it?
I think we got it going around the first week of the lockdown.
These 3 weeks.
And then we've just been refining it with better graphics and different flow.
Wow. I tip my hat to you. I haven't even solidified an idea in that long a time. So you've already written a book. Now, one lingering doubt I always have about vaccines is vaccines a one size fit all? Because not everybody eats the same kind of food. And we talked about that your food defines who you are. So yet the vaccine appears to be the same thing for everyone. How does that play out?
Actually, interestingly, I mean, this is something that I have gained by reading up the last few days about vaccines themselves. Fundamentally, it is about antibodies, about how antibodies attack viruses or antigens which cause the harm. So these antibodies themselves, they are supposed to have two parts. One part which is a fixed, and another part which adapts itself to the attacking virus, and it forms a suitable receptacle as per the not just the size and not just the chemical compound of the attacking antigen, but also the size and shape of that attacking antigen. I don't know how this thing has got that kind of intelligence. I mean, I'm just marveling at the kind of design that is there in this universe. So they themselves adapt to these antigens that are coming. And therefore, when you say a vaccine is not targeted based on your body. It is targeted at that antigen. So it is given to build up these kind of antibodies in your system so that there are sufficient number of them in your body. As and when the antigen comes itself, they can go and attack it even before it can cause harm. So it really doesn't have to vary from one body to another body. It varies based on the antigen, the attacking virus. But there again, I remember one, our Ayurvedic doctor telling us during the chikungunya, epidemic that was going around. She said that in Ayurveda there is a cure not just for chikungunya but for all viruses that can come now and in future as well. So fundamentally, from what she said, I could gather that there is a very generic approach that is available for handling any kind of virus. I'm just hoping I can kind of, I hope she has made enough headway or people listen to her or whatever.
This is a curiosity question. How many years are there in the current Manvantara?
See, there are many types of Manvantara. See, one is astronomical Manvantara, which
Cosmic.
that's a cosmic astronomical Manvantara. That's just so many more thousands of lakhs of years are there for it. That's at level. We also give you another example how the term Manvantara itself means a space between two Manu. There's one Manu and there's another Manu. So the space between two Manu is a Manvantara. So two leaders who lead humanity. So that's at a geographical level. One is at an astronomical level. So you got two levels. And even it's not only two levels, there are multiple levels, there are multiple levels in between also. So that's the answer to it. So the way there's not one yuga, there are 7 types of yuga. Each asserted there are 4 subdivisions. Like that, Manvantara is also so.
Yeah, I remember touching upon the how long the yuga is in a previous conversation of ours. So this has been a most fascinating conversation, and thank you so much, Hema and DK Hari, for allocating time to share your thoughts on this. I wish you all the best for your new book, and particularly so that you've conceived it and executed it in such a short amount of time. I wish I had the kind of power that you do to be able to write so fast. Thank you so much, and it's now already hot there. It's getting cold here, and this is really an eye opener, because I just did one other hangout with Professor RV, and he said that post coronavirus, wellness is going to be front and center in everybody's lives. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.